In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into the perplexing reaction of Western leaders to the death of Ebrahim Raisi, the president of Iran, notoriously known as the Butcher of Tehran. The episode covers a range of topics, including the inherent nature of human beings, the flaws in Western institutions, and the ongoing political landscape in the United States. Shapiro begins by expressing his disbelief at the Western leaders' response to Raisi's death, which included offering condolences and moments of silence. He finds this reaction bizarre and unprecedented, given Raisi's notorious reputation for presiding over the deaths of thousands of innocent people, including dissidents, American troops, and attacks on American allies. Shapiro emphasizes Raisi's support for terrorism and proxy groups that have caused significant harm and death. Despite these heinous acts, the West, including the UN, EU, and NATO, expressed sympathy for his death, which Shapiro finds misguided and troubling. The discussion then shifts to the underlying belief in the West that human beings are inherently good. Shapiro argues that this belief leads to the misconception that better institutions and systems can create a better world. He contrasts this secularist perspective with traditional Judaic and Christian views, which acknowledge the inherent sinfulness of human beings and the need for personal growth and redemption. Shapiro criticizes the Western delusion that all people share the same values and desires for freedom, citing examples from past presidents like Woodrow Wilson and Barack Obama, who espoused similar beliefs. He argues that this misguided belief in universal goodness and the power of international order has led to the exploitation of Western institutions by malevolent forces like Raisi and his regime. Shapiro also touches upon the concept of dhimmitude in Islam, which designates non-Muslims as second-class citizens. He highlights how individuals like Raisi can manipulate Western ideals of openness and tolerance to further their own agendas. He points out the hypocrisy of organizations like the UN, which have been co-opted by oppressive regimes and used to target countries like Israel, while turning a blind eye to atrocities committed by others. The podcast also touches on the death of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and the response from world leaders. Shapiro praises Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell for his statement condemning Soleimani and highlighting the atrocities committed by the Iranian regime. He criticizes other politicians, like Joe Biden, for their ambiguous stance on the issue. He argues that the West's failure to take a firm stance against figures like Soleimani and Raisi reflects a broader problem of moral relativism and a lack of understanding of the true nature of evil. Shapiro then discusses the ongoing trial of former President Donald Trump, focusing on the testimony of Michael Cohen. He points out the irony of Cohen admitting to stealing money from the Trump Organization, which is a more serious crime than anything alleged against Trump in the trial. Shapiro criticizes the prosecution for not addressing this revelation earlier in the trial, arguing that it undermines the credibility of the case against Trump. He also discusses the broader implications of the trial for the American political landscape, arguing that it reflects a broader trend of politicizing the legal system to target political opponents. The podcast also mentions the anniversary of the death of Michael Brown, a controversial figure in the Black Lives Matter movement. Shapiro criticizes politicians like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman for glorifying Brown, despite his criminal actions. He argues that the left's insistence on promoting false narratives undermines their credibility and distracts from more pressing issues facing the country. He also discusses the broader implications of the Black Lives Matter movement for American society, arguing that it reflects a broader trend of identity politics and a focus on victimhood rather than personal responsibility and growth. Lastly, the podcast briefly mentions a controversial film about Donald Trump's rise to power, which portrays him in a negative light. Shapiro dismisses the film as a futile attempt to damage Trump's reputation, stating that only Trump himself can defeat his chances of winning the election. He praises Trump for running a more disciplined campaign this time around, arguing that it reflects a broader trend of political maturity and growth. Shapiro also discusses the broader implications of the film for the American political landscape, arguing that it reflects a broader trend of media bias and a focus on sensationalism rather than substantive issues. Throughout the episode, Shapiro emphasizes the importance of understanding the true nature of human beings and the need for personal growth and redemption. He argues that the West's failure to acknowledge the reality of human nature and the existence of evil has led to misguided policies and a lack of moral clarity. He calls for a return to traditional values and a focus on personal responsibility and growth, arguing that this is the only way to create a better world.